So today we wanted to cover off on deploy Microsoft Office 2016 the right way. My name is Brian Kennedy. I'm a deployment architect for Microsoft. Been working with Pro Plus for a little over a year now, deploying Pro Plus with enterprise level customers, typically roughly about 15,000 seats or more, up to about 450, 500,000 seats. We've got several large customers that we've been working with. So what we wanted to cover off today is really focusing on Office 2016 Click to Run or Pro Plus, really looking at what are the best ways to deploy, et cetera. So I won't spend any more time on who I am. But what we want to cover off on is really learn about the changes. What are the big changes that came in with Office 2016? What is the Office Click to Run or Pro Plus versus what our MSI product or Office Professional Plus is? And then what we want to do is really kind of cover off on what we call our best practices. So hopefully you'll come out of this room. It is a 200 level class, so we tried not to go into a lot of the technical details around here's the executables I run, here's the commands I run. We tried to keep it a little bit more high level of here's the processes that we follow. My team, I've got a team of about 6 people that would do production deployments for customers on a daily basis. And what we've done is we've actually isolated these out to 3 common scenarios for deployment and for update management. So I'll cover off on what are the 3 types of scenarios and how you can mix and match those scenarios to meet kind of the business need within your environment. So before I go too far, and I apologize because the lights are pretty bright so it's hard to see hands, but I'd love to see how many people in this room are either currently planning a Pro Plus deployment or actively deploying Pro Plus in their environment? Okay, so there's a good chunk of those. How many outside of that group, how many people are at the early stages of considering potentially moving to Pro Plus? Okay, so I'll try to keep it a little bit, I'll focus a little bit at the early onset of what the value prop is and things like that. What I'd like to do is kind of move into more of what our best practices and what Microsoft recommends for how to deploy. So we will touch a little bit on some of the feature sets and things like that, but I'll spend more of the time on how our best practices, what are they, how should we be looking at deployment, and what are the different scenarios. The other thing I'd like to say is we've got myself here, I've got one of my consultants that does Pro Plus deployments, we've got 2 product group members, so at the end of the session, right after this, we're holding you up from the Ask the Experts. We will all be at Ask the Experts, so we've got different programs for supporting customers for Pro Plus. So if you're looking for different programs that Microsoft has, we've got a bunch of the people in here that own those. So if you do have questions that we can't answer in the session, please come to Ask the Experts. It's right after this session, so I'll remind you guys at the end, but definitely if you have questions, please feel free to use that as well. So if we look at where we started, so Office 2016, we kind of have 2 different slices, and this is really more around a value prop of trying to really say, here's what you get with Office 2016. If we look at it from an end user perspective, we really kind of build out you're looking at here's the feature sets around co-authoring, allowing users to do collaboration across the board, across your organization, streamlining a lot of those feature sets so that end users can work together, use features like Cortana, like Search, things of that nature to help them be more productive when they're in their actual Office client. So there were features that as we moved out of 2010 into 2013 and into 2016, it's really focusing from an end user perspective, how do we make the productivity tools easier to use? How do we make them integrate better across the board and across the product? So that's what we're really looking at as Office 2016. A lot of this content, there's 2016, which is an MSI product or Office Professional Plus, and then there's Office Click to Run, which is the Pro Plus. So naming-wise, probably not the greatest thing that one's Pro Plus and one is Professional Plus. They are very different products. Professional Plus is your MSI kind of standard, what we've done for Office for a long time. The Pro Plus is our Click to Run version. A lot of the same features are there. There's some differences in those features as well that I'll touch on in a couple slides here. Big difference that came in with 2016, if I move to for IT pros. What does the IT pro get with 2016? So a lot of what comes out for Pro Plus is really integration into our O365 core platform. right? Data protection capabilities, DLP capabilities, allowing the client to interact with the Office 365 suite of products such as Exchange, SharePoint, Skype for Business, Yammer, et cetera. What you also get is a new a distribution capability around content management, content distribution on a Microsoft-owned infrastructure, or what we'll call it, I'll use the term a lot, it's the Microsoft or Office CDN. It's the Content Delivery Network, and for people in the room that may not be in technology or CDN-wise or not know what CDN is, it's really just the distribution mechanism that Microsoft has. It's publicly facing, it's where all of our bits get pushed to, and it allows you to have kind of a management capability with Microsoft actually owning that kind of core infrastructure. So what is Office 365 Pro Plus, and what is kind of the value of Pro Plus over the MSI product? If you see here, we released in September of 2015. We released our core Office Pro Plus, or 2016 Pro Plus version. What we've done since then is you see all the feature sets. So what we're looking at in Pro Plus is this is our Office servicing model, or our Office servicing version. So what happens is, as we're releasing and developing new features, Pro Plus is going to be the first client that gets those. So I release something in Exchange, I release something in SharePoint, it requires a client component. That client component is then rolled into Pro Plus. That update is pushed out, and you can update that, and now you can take advantage of it. The difference here with Pro Plus versus Professional Plus, which is our MSI product, the MSI product will always lag behind in those feature sets. So if you're an O365 customer, you've got an Exchange feature that comes out, requires a change in Outlook. That feature will come out in Pro Plus. It may come out in the MSI platform. There's potential that that may never actually show up into the MSI platform as well. So that's the key distinguisher between it. When you're looking at Office 365, you look at Pro Plus, it's where the feature sets go for the client. It's the fastest release channel for that. Eventually, they may or may not manage to be in the MSI platform. So the other advantage that you have on Pro Plus is really, you can see kind of down on the bottom here, feature sets that are coming out in the roadmap. So when you go into the roadmap, there's a Pro Plus updates site here. You can kind of go see what the feature sets are around advanced security management, advanced threat protection, things like that. If those are required within a client, Pro Plus is where those feature sets are coming from. So I'll kind of do a click to run versus MSI overview. So what is click to run? It sounds like most people here are either deploying, planning on deploying, or looking at deploying. So I won't spend a ton of time on this because I think I want to get more to the kind of meat of deployment, et cetera. But what does click to run really mean? It enables Office as a service. What that means, I kind of already touched on it, as features are required from our other 365 suite of products, Pro Plus is where those get pushed down. So they get pushed down from a client perspective and then enabled. So it gives you that service, Office as a service feel, ever changing, always updating, new features, security patches, et cetera. Security is released obviously in our MSI products as well. But what you do get is you get that monthly cadence or bi-yearly cadence on features. You also get a same UI experience that we have on our MSI platform. So if you're moving to click to run, or if you've been a long time MSI person, you still get with the click to run same UI experience. You still have 32, 64-bit. You still have the same system requirements, so those are the same. One of the things it also does, it allows you to leverage a lot of the cloud licensing. So I try not to talk too much about licensing. I'm a delivery person, not a licensing person. And I could get turned around real fast on a licensing conversation. But what it does do, you have O365 in the environment for Exchange, SharePoint, Skype, you name it. Well, if you have the right licensing model, you're already licensed for the client as well. So you look at it from an organization perspective. If we're on a 365 platform, using the Pro Plus is included in that licensing versus having to go O365 licensing and then the MSI licensing is a separate thing. So it's already included in that. The other licensing component is that you get it on 5 devices, so individual users, instead of individually licensing on each individual machine or each individual device, you're actually licensing it to the user. So you get 5 licenses. You can spread that across a desktop, a laptop. You can put it on a mobile. You can also go to home use programs. So if you want your employees to use Office, connect up to Office from home, you can use it there as well. So each person in your environment has 5 licenses. So that's a big distinguishing factor versus our MSI platform. So one of the things, I kind of put this slide up, and it's probably straightforward for some folks. Other folks have probably not seen these. What we try to do is, what are the different distribution mechanisms between MSI and Click-to-Run? So if we look at MSI as a whole, everybody's been doing MSI deployments for a long time. It's the typical kind of deployment methodology that we've used. If we look at Click-to-Run, you can see here, it supports local installation files, network installation. You can use software distribution tools to deploy it. There's not a lot of difference in the capabilities. There's a little bit of difference as you start packaging and what do you need to do, but the capabilities are still there. I can still use Config Manager. I can still use network file shares. I can still use local installs, downloading it, et cetera. So there's capabilities. One of the capabilities that's new is that ability to point them to the cloud. So you can point your clients to the cloud and actually manage them from the cloud without having any infrastructure on your side, outside of network. So as you can see here, there's a lot of similarities between it. Generally speaking, when I go in and talk to a customer that's early in the phase or is thinking about rolling, this is usually one of those things. We invested heavily in Configuration Manager. I can't install it. So there's a misnomer around Click-to-Run that I have to point them to the internet. That's not true. I'll show you towards the end of the slide deck here. There's different scenarios where you can actually use internal, file distribution locations, Configuration Manager, other third-party software distribution, and still manage your environment. So we'll touch on those in a little bit, but I really want to clear that up early on because people really do get stuck on MSI. I used to be able to do all of this stuff, and with Click-to-Run, I have to go to the cloud, and that's not true. So, oops. So what's really different here, it's really around the install points and feature updates that we've kind of already talked about. It allows us for managing licensing in cloud. So if I have 365 already, I have Exchange, SharePoint for my users. I've also got licensing for those users based in for Pro Plus. So there's a licensing component you need to consider versus the MSI. So they weren't licensed together, MSI and your 365 products, but with Pro Plus it is. The other thing is you get that cloud installation point option. So if I don't have an infrastructure in the environment, or I want to start limiting that on-prem infrastructure, like a file share locations are starting to go down in distribution points, I can actually leverage Microsoft's cloud environment, right? So our Microsoft CDN. So focus, kind of turn a little bit to what's required from an activation. So it is a service, it's a cloud service, so there are components, right, where the client has to be able to reach the internet. So what we try to do is really outline, here are the major areas when I install or when I'm using Pro Plus, here are the times that I actually need internet connectivity. The reason this is important is if you look at it, you really look at like that initial installation and activation. So when I install Office Pro Plus, I log in, I type my alias in, I log in password, it goes and checks the first time, do you have a license? If the answer is yes, says great, stores it, activates it, and now I can move on. Where this is really important is when you start looking at offline capabilities, right? So for activation, let's say nuclear sub is kind of a good example because everybody gets it, right? I have no internet connectivity, what do I do? In that scenario, you have to work around those of how do I activate since I don't have capability of the internet. So you do have to have that initial activation. So it'll check that. Other times it'll check is it does a subscription check. So it runs a subscription check. What that basically means is a heartbeat. So think of it, I ping the service and say, hey, does Brian still work at Microsoft? If he does, great. You can continue using your license. Are you still licensed for it? Great. So that's what that heartbeat check is. Are you still allowed to use this based on the license that you have? So that's kind of a daily check. You can see it here in the orange. Data send, it sends product key, it sends make sure that you're still licensed for the product. That way you can, as you're moving through different scenarios of people leave the company, you start changing licensing, et cetera. That's how it kind of checks in on that and makes sure that you have that licensing available. If you look at product key management, this is once every month or 30 days, and I use a little bit of air quotes because it's a little bit staggered. But what it does is once a month, it checks and say, are you still available? It has to have a successful heartbeat, so that orange one, I can be offline for 20 days. Does a heartbeat, I can't reach anything, okay, I keep working. It has to have a successful heartbeat once in 30 days. The reason for that is it sits there, it'll check the license, you have it for a 30-day subscription, basically. It'll continue to check. If it's offline, it just goes, okay, well, I'll go sleep, and as long as I've checked in the last 30 days, I'm okay. So that's the difference between like your subscription status and then this heartbeat. You have a heartbeat that goes once a day and checks, and it has to be successful at least once in every 30 days. So kind of questions on that before I kind of move. I'll kind of start getting into more of the technology piece. Go ahead.
What the product keys sent there, does it actually, it doesn't matter if it's a VLK where it actually talks to the servers?
So volume license key, is that where, so the question was when you do when it sends up the subscription or product key, does it leverage the volume license key?
Yeah,
it
also the same with the VLK, it's something like a compromise. VLKs for the Office 3, does it actually still do the same, scenario, like you'll check again for like, oh, you're still there, whatever.
It's different than a VLK. The VLKs you can use different either on-premise servers, et cetera, that manage your volume or your volume licenses. Yeah. With Pro Plus, what it does is it actually checks the Office subscription service. So it goes up to Office 365 and it checks your license on the 365 side and says, am I still valid? If you're valid still on the 365. It checks against your subscription, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it goes to the Office 365 subscription to check your validity, not to your KMS or your VLK infrastructure. Does that?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions before I kind of go to? Okay. Sorry, I'm doing that. It probably looks really weird, but all right. So next, what we're going to kind of focus on, I'll start talking a little bit about service model. And what our update channels are. So I know if there was quite a big hand raise around channel management. Channel management is, generally speaking, one of the areas that most of our customers have the most struggle with. So it usually takes a little bit of time for us to describe it with somebody that really understands it, get our customers and their IT staffs to understand really what is channel management and why is it important. So what I'm going to try and do is actually try to simplify it a little bit, hopefully, versus going out and reading it on our TechNet articles, et cetera. We've got a link to what we call our best practices guidance, which we do the same thing. We try to simplify it. So we'll kind of go into more of this deep dive into service and channel management or servicing model. So if we look at Pro Plus, there's really two productions. So I'll talk a little bit more on if you're following on reading the slide, I'm talking more in the kind of blue column over here. So we've got two different production channels within the servicing model for Office Pro Plus. We've got what we call a current channel. Current channel is pretty much what it means. It's current as features are developed, as they're validated, as they hit a quality bar within Microsoft, they're released to current channel. So what that means is on a monthly basis, you can think of it as I try to not to get into too much of the build cadence in this, but if I look at it from a perspective of I've got a development team working on a feature within Word, right? New feature, it's got a blue squiggly line. I don't know what the feature is, but let's pretend that that's there. If I'm looking at that, we have a bunch of developers that are working on that feature set at Microsoft. And as soon as they check the code in, they validate it, they test it, make sure that it works with the products, it gets released into current channel. So you can think of that as being, we get about, it's a quality-based release. So hits the quality bar, it gets released. At the current time, I think we average roughly 2 or 3 a month right now in current channel. So that's one of our production channels. The other production channel that we have is called deferred channel, and you can kind of see it. I don't know if you can see the colors here, but if you go to that kind of red and yellow, which is DC1, DC2, DC3, that represents our deferred channels. So what deferred channel gets roll-ups of all the feature sets, and it releases 3 times a year. So if I look at current channel, I'm getting updates on a continuous basis. Changes happen, I get them. Changes happen, I get them. On deferred channel, what it allows you to do is actually do those 3 times a year. I have these features, I want to educate my end users, I need to train my help desk. I have these things going on in my environment that I want to kind of manage how often I'm updating my end users. I can put everybody on deferred channel. Now I'm getting updates or feature updates 3 times a year. You still get a monthly security patch on both of those. So the biggest thing that we want to do as Microsoft, and historically we've always done this Patch Tuesday, we still have that concept. We're still rolling these security features, so you can be on deferred channel withholding features, but I'm still getting those security updates to keep you secure. Yes?
So what Microsoft is doing is enough machines to train your help desk on current channel, so they know what the new features are and what they're being released at.
So you get John's laptop. I'm just kidding. So the question, if everybody couldn't hear it, was one of the good things that he's recommending is putting some users onto your current channel, have them understand the feature sets, and then train your help desk. And I said it's a good question because it's actually my next slide, I believe, or maybe it's 2 slides, but we do cover on that exact scenario. So there's ways that you use these channels that we recommend so that you can actually do help desk training, end user communication, documenting the change for end users, and it is in a couple slides. So I think I heard move on. So the other channel that we do have is what's called first release deferred channel. In this pictorial, it's this orange one with the little box around it. So we'll talk a little bit about this one. This one is probably the one that gets people the most confused. So what we have is we have current channel, all the features get released. We have deferred channel, you get that 3 times a year. We have what's called FRDC, or first release deferred channel. Think of this as a validation build, right? So I have a new feature, I have a user that's using this, a new feature comes out, it has a new pop-up window, and I want to document all that feature set for my end users. Now, if I go to my business, does that pop-up cause a problem with a line of business app? If I put a segment of my users on first release, you can use that as a validation channel because you'll have all the feature sets that are in current channel. You can validate it on first release deferred channel with all your business users, your true business users, and then make sure that it doesn't cause LOB problems, and then put out the rest of your population on deferred channel. So really think of when you hear first release deferred channel or first release current channel, think of those as validation channels. It's really, how do I validate features before I roll them to production? It's kind of what we've been doing anyway on Security Patch Tuesdays. So I look at it from my IT admin days before I was in Microsoft. I used to go to my business users, I'd patch it up, use about a week, maybe 2 weeks, throw it out to my users that are the business line of business application users. They test it, they come back, say, yep, you're good to go. Boom, I can then move. So think of those as the same things in a channel that you can use that for.
So it's almost like a beta channel, right? So it's kind of like just how where you got LTSP, so basically you can forward all, for developers, they can just use the beta channel as their staging ground to make sure, okay, is this working? And then I can move back into my current channel, which is my regular production channel.
Yeah, so for the folks in the room, the question was, can I use this as a beta channel for developers, et cetera? I don't like to use the term beta. The answer is yes. Think of it in that concept. The only reason I don't like to use beta is because all 3 of these channels are fully supported by Microsoft. If I have a problem in FRDC, I can call support. I can actually get a bug. If there's a bug or an issue, I can work with support through Premier. I can get a bug fixed in this channel and potentially have that fixed before it actually hits DC. So that's the only reason I don't say it's beta, but yes, the activity is the same, where I use it as a pre-rollout to another environment. The only difference would be is that we fully support that. If you called Premier support, you'd actually get support on it, versus sometimes beta, they kind of semi-support it, but not really.
Yeah, that's why, because I'm just seeing most of them, oh yeah, for in the deference, you can defer Office 365 to the mod where it's you're getting the first release, like you said, the first release is aka okay, we're giving you the brand new version, this is the trial, this is the new version, try it. If you like it, good. If you don't like it, stay on your current channel.
Right.
So basically, that's what I'm referring to.
Yeah, and so the comment is, can I stay on these? And I'll cover a little bit more on that as I go to the kind of the channel management that I was referring to this other gentleman asked a question about. Any other questions before I kind of?
Can you move between channels?
Yes, you can move between channels. I do have a slide on that, but since you ask it right now, so the question is, can you move between channels? The answer is yes, you can move between channels. So let's say that I'm on a current channel as an end user. I identify an issue or something that comes out and I want to move that user to deferred channel. You can do that. There are some challenges with that I cover later in the slide around if I'm moving from a newer build to an older build, it no longer does delta compression. So there's some network bandwidth things you need to consider about what that update looks like. It's not a full uninstall, reinstall. It's what's called a file delta replication. So if I go from a new to an old, you'll get a full file delta replication between those. And depending on how far difference they are in builds, it could look size-wise like a brand new patch. But the answer is yes, I can totally change channels. Any other? I thought I saw a question back here.
If we are using a software like SCCM to manage it, will it still update the Office product itself, or does there have to be some user intervention?
So the question was, if we're using Configuration Manager, can I use updates with Configuration Manager? Is there something that the user needs to happen? Is that? Yeah. So let me actually answer that question and before we leave here, because I've got a slide that shows how we do that. Oh yeah, and actually, John just reminded me, there is also a Config Manager session for Office Pro Plus specifically tomorrow if you really want to go deep. I'm going to go pretty high level, but my colleague here, John, in the front, has an SCCM specific session tomorrow. Okay. All right, so that's really what our channels are. Think of them as two different choices for what I want my end users from a production perspective, and then I have this validation channel. And those are kind of key as we're walking through the rest of this slide deck on how do I manage and use these things to actually meet my corporate needs. So here's another kind of depiction of this and what we tried to solve as Microsoft. So I'll let it build out. Really, why do we have these production channels and why do we have these validation channels? So here's what we heard from customers, and it's kind of a mixed, it's a mixed bag from people. One was, I want everything latest and greatest. I always want the newest features all the time. That is one set of customers. We also hear from customers, I can't take that much change in my environment as fast as you're talking about it. So you kind of have to weigh those two options and go, what's the right thing? So what we try to do is really build in, how do we meet both of those needs and keep kind of one code base and keep things coherent so we have a supportable matrix for Microsoft and we give the best experience to our customers. So what we did is we came up with these current channel for the customers that want current features, and then this deferred channel. So it's really kind of this agility, predictability that we have in the environment that we're trying to solve both of those problems at the same time. There's still work going on to make sure that that is completely smooth. A lot of feedback from customers. Part of my job and John's job is really working with customers like yourselves and bringing that feedback back to the product group and go, look, these are not working, these are working. How do we make this the best for our customers? But that's really why we have this. We want to make sure we have secure code for everybody. So we do security patches just like we have on Patch Tuesday for all channels. But it really gives you kind of that flexibility of, I do want people in my organization to have features all the time, or I have a company that wants those, and I have this kind of deferred methodology. So that's kind of why we have this model in place. So if I go to channel management roles, and this was directly to the question around, it's good to have some users on current channel, some users on FR, or first release channel, and some on deferred. So what we typically see in the enterprise space at the large scale customers, most customers look at their broad user base, like their finance departments, HR departments, et cetera, going on deferred channel. So you can see that down at the bottom here, and it's depicted by the large Pac-Man up at the top, right? Most of my population is on deferred channel. It solves some of those problems around communication, training, LOB validation. Now, if I assume that I have most of my environment on deferred channel, the next thing you want to do is look at, how do I do LOB app testing? How do I make sure that as these patches are rolling out, something's not broken? So that's where we start inserting this bottom or this middle row. You start looking at first release deferred channel. What that allows me to do is pick a subsection of my entire organization, and I repeat, entire organization. It's key to have people, not just your IT users. In this, really what you're trying to validate is Office going to cause me a problem when it rolls out. So you want people from finance, from HR, from your business groups, testing on this, making sure their daily work happens. So we put those people on FRDC. They can validate things before the DC rollout happens. So this allows you that kind of 4-month time frame to test the feature sets before I go to a deferred channel for my broad population. I have some percentages here. I'll be honest with you, they're kind of recommendations, but if I have a 500,000 seat customer, I may not need 10% on there. I might need less than that, right? So it's more of just guidance around making sure that we have a broad population on first release. And then current channel, what we typically see here, comms people, IT people, I want to see the features as soon as they come out, determine what the impact's going to be. If I need to go document current, the current feature sets, et cetera, I actually have between 6 months and 8 months to do that for my broad population. And it's because of the way that current channel would roll out. I see this feature today. It moves into FRDC. My broad user or my LOB users use it. And then I have time before my DC users. I can validate, does my comms plan work? Does my help desk work, et cetera. So that's how we leverage the different, or how we recommend leveraging different channels, and kind of your point. You want people on different channels so you can kind of organize. So, that's a cool slide. I want to show how does a feature, the next question comes in after I've done that, is always, well, a feature just released today, what happens? So I'm going to kind of take a very simplistic view of it to try to explain that. So if you look at it, say today's October. I built this slide when it was in October, so. Feature comes out, little blue dot here in October. What happens? Got quality tested, it gets put into current release. Let's just say that that's in October. October release, boom, new features there. Should probably use Clippy because that would be pretty cool. We release that again. So when does that actually come into FRDC? So you'll see in October, new features released. You'll see that in November. You'll see that in December, January, and ongoing in current channel. The question always comes out is, when can I expect that to be in my first release deferred channel so I can test my LOB apps? That's going to happen in the February timeframe. So feature gets released either in October or November or December. Those all get rolled up into the February build for FRDC. You'll notice I don't say February. Depending on where that kind of timeline is and checkpoint, you could get some of those features as well. So let's just go with basically 2 weeks before. If it's in there, you'll get it. So that now propagates up to FRDC. That'll be in your FRDC build all the way through until July. It'll actually be in there forever now because now it's already propagated up. But I can test it. When's my end user going to get it? It's going to come out in the June build. So you can see they stagger. So when I said earlier, let's take October, I get a fix in October that I'm waiting for my production end users. It could be all the way until that July timeframe that you get that into DC depending on where they're at. That's why I say between a 6 to 8 month period of features done, complete, ready to push, when does it go to DC? The reason I also say that this is a simplified view, there are scenarios where if we see a issue integration issue with, let's say, a third-party add-in, a major partner of ours. If we see an issue, we go, oh, wow, okay, that's causing some big friction. We do a fix in CC. There's possibility that that does get pushed to FRDC and DC immediately. We consider those break fix items. We get enough support calls on it, or we identify it ourselves and we go, oh, this is going to have a big impact. We'll push it out. So I use it as a simple view. Keep in mind there are scenarios that that does not happen. So if we have a major issue, we can propagate it to all channels. Security patches. Again, should be fairly straightforward. We take each one of these as a production environment. So what you see here, the security patches are done feature by feature. So if the feature's in FRDC, it'll be patched in FRDC. If it's in CC, it's in CC. So we security patch all the different channels. All 3 of these channels are supported throughout their life cycle. So any one of these, if you have a challenge with it, you can call Premier, CSS. They can actually call or give you support, fully supported. So questions on feature propagation before I kind of...
So are these basically insider, the current Argos kind of like taking insider builds Office?
Insider build is totally, it's faster. So if you're on an insider, if you're on an Office, the question is, are these like Office Insider builds? The Office Insider program is actually a pre-2CC, so you're actually getting builds faster.
So it's kind of in a similar way, basically.
It's similar to the old, yeah, if you're trying to correlate old thinking to what we do today, yeah, CC will be the fastest. So you can think of that as insider preview type stuff that we used to do in the past, yes.
Okay, and from that, the future would be like kind of like the stable versions from there on.
So, yes, yeah.
Okay.
Similar thought process. I think I saw a hand back was, yeah. Yeah, so the question was, does the MSI version follow this same update path? The answer is no, it does not. It still has its normal security patching on Patch Tuesdays, but the feature set, so if you watch this blue bouncing ball up here, a good correlation of that is these would be features that are going into Pro Plus. They're not necessarily even guaranteed to be in the MSI product depending on what the feature set is. So the answer is no, they don't follow that same thing. It will lag much, much slower, if at all. And I think I saw, nope, okay. So if we look at kind of just the update process overview, detecting updates is available. So how do we detect updates in the client? It can be automatic, so there's a scheduled task on the client that the client looks at a scheduled task on the machine. It'll go up and check Office, is there a newer build? If so, download it, install it. That's one methodology for it. You can also kick it off using the click-to-run client EXE, and this leads to, I think there was the question back here around, can I manage it with Config Manager? You can manage it with the EXE and actually send commands directly using older versions of Config Manager, or if you're in 1602, 1606, it's already, if you're on a 1606 version of Config Manager, you can actually do this natively in the client without having to package it up. So that's one kind of key differentiator on the update process. And then downloads, right? So it downloads, when it does updates, it does what we call delta binary compression. So if I go from N and think of, and this is where we get a little build-centric and we use a little bit of Microsoft technology. It's kind of hard to not do it to describe it, but you have N and then you have N-1. If you're going from an N-1 to N, so just going up one version, we use what's called delta binary compression. What that does is it allows us to actually do just the transfer of data that we need in order to patch it. If you start going N-2, it does what we call a file replication, so any files that have changed between those are transferred. So the longer you go between build updates, the bigger and bigger the package gets. N to N-, or N-1 to N is actually the best, smallest package size, and they just grow from there. If you end up about 4 or 5 patches behind and you try to patch, it almost looks like a full distribution because the file changes is so big. So that's a big one. It downloads in the background. So you can actually download it, cache it onto the machine, and then you can have your users click a button, yep, update now, it's already on the machine, and then it just goes through its updates. And so that's how the update process and update management works. Questions on updates? I've got some scenarios around this later that I show how do we do this, but questions kind of on just the overall. Yes?
Is this update on launch, or will it be updated while using it and then the new version after they close it?
So the question was, is it update and launch, or will it be when they close and then reopen? So the answer is, it will download in the background, or you can configure it to download in the background while the user is working, and then they'll get an update bar where they can click and update it. Or you can have it download in the background and then schedule a task for it to either go at a point in time that's off work hours and then do a reboot. But in order to do the update, you do have to have all the Office apps closed. So, was that a hand? Nope.
Wait, so that would mean that if we're running it with SCM, that would mean we can tell SCM to update.
Shut down.
Yeah, to shut down, or just tell the user, hey, Office is being updated, so they which is up, right?
Right. Yeah, so the question, and I'm just repeating this because we don't have microphones in here, but for, our question was, can we just use, if we're using Config Manager, can I use Config Manager pop-ups to say, hey, we're updating Office, and just do a forced shutdown? And the answer is yes. You use task sequences to do that, or however you do it today, you can do the exact same thing. Was there? Oh. All right, so what I really want to do is I wanted to get into kind of learn from others. So I really like this concept. So my team, I'm fortunate to have a great team, first off. And the other thing is that we've been working with some really great customers that give us not just good feedback, they give us, well, it's all great feedback, not positive feedback. They've given us negative as well. And so what I really like about it is walking through the scenarios. We've worked with significantly large customers, some fairly small customers, some with high bandwidth, some with low bandwidth. So what we've done is really boiled down to, here's kind of learning from our experiences, publishing that content out to our customers so that we can actually say, here's what we recommend based on the environments that we've seen. It's not just based off Microsoft, it's not just based off technology companies, it's all kinds of companies, banks, technology, oil, et cetera. So we've got a big sampling set, and so the rest of my actual presentation is around what are the scenarios that we've seen, when do we use them, when do we not use them, and how can I mix and match these different kind of environments or these different kinds of solutions so that I can actually meet my business needs. So with that, I'll go into what we call the best practices. We used to call it preferred practices. You'll still see it, our OneNote here still says preferred practices. It'll be updated to best practice. But what are the best practices for Pro Plus? So what we've done, as I've stated, we've worked with a lot of different customers, a lot of our consulting services, our premier services organizations, what's the best thing to do? What are you seeing? What's worked? What's not worked? Let's do kind of root cause analysis and let's identify it. So what we've done is we've actually worked with our TechNet team, our customers, to document, here are the scenarios that we have. We published this out in September. We're moving it over as we speak, so it's actually located on support.office.com. So you'll actually be able to go download this OneNote if you want, and there's a link at the end of the deck there. You can go out and go look at it. So what it is it's a OneNote that goes, I have these types of environments, I have these types of scenarios, or I have these VDI environments, these types of users. What should I do? And it's kind of a narrative of, here's the XML you need, here's the execution patterns, et cetera. So it's not a one-size-fits-all, I will say that. There are 3 scenarios that we have that we'll cover. Take those as what scenario fits the various different environment components. So I can use one scenario to meet my corporate offices. I can use another scenario for a little branch office that has 3 salespeople in it. I can use some other scenario for a corporate office that's behind a slow link, et cetera. So you can mix and match these scenarios and still manage your environment, kind of how we do today with MSI. So what are those scenarios, you might ask? So we've kind of named them just so that we have a name on something. We call it cloud managed. And what Cloud Managed is think of it as we're using the Microsoft Office CDN, or the Content Delivery Network. That's where I'm downloading all my content. That's where I'm pointing people for updates. So we call it Cloud Managed because you're basically allowing the client to go out to the internet and either update, download, et cetera, kind of on its own based on the parameters you've set. We also use a file share or DFS scenario, which we call locally managed. This is, I have infrastructure in my environment. Some people actually use their configman DPs as file shares instead of as a configman distribution point. That's totally acceptable. But think of file shares as the old school file share. I have a location, I download it to that location, I point all my clients to it. So that's what we call locally managed. And then we have what's called enterprise managed. And the real difference there is enterprise manages leverage configuration manager or some other software distribution tool. So I'll cover off on how do you do all three of these scenarios, and then I'll speak on various different ways where we've used enterprise managed to do corporate offices, and then like the smaller locations either using DFS or CDN locations. So, what are the advantages? I think you can kind of look at it from an IT administration perspective of why would I use one versus another, but I like to put these up just to say, here's what kind of the key benefits are. When would I use a cloud managed? It's really, I want to use Microsoft's infrastructure. I don't have an infrastructure in place. I've got large internet connectivity from certain locations, but not others. Those large internet connectivity, I can use cloud managed, I can control what's happening, and I can have them go straight to the internet. I don't have to, as an IT admin, worry about doing anything anymore. I don't have to do updates, I don't have to download something, I don't have to package it. I can just point them to cloud managed, or to the cloud. If I look at locally managed, a lot of people have spent money on their infrastructure. I have different ways that I get applications out to my end users. So we allow it to do that same thing. Totally common scenario. And then enterprise managed. It'd be kind of a shame if we didn't allow software distribution tools to deploy our new products. So obviously that's where it's at. We've spent money on an existing infrastructure. I want to use that. I want to get reporting out of that, et cetera. I can then use my enterprise managed solution. So those are kind of the big differences and kind of the keys of each individual scenario. So if I look at cloud managed, I'll do kind of a simple pictorial, and then I'll come back at the end of when we have used these versus other scenarios. So if I look at cloud managed and update, how does this work? And I think most of the people in here, it look like we're either planning or have done this. So I'll kind of walk through and describe a little bit of detail. What do we do on an initial deployment? So think of an initial deployment as being a customer or an end user has Office 2007, 2010, and I'm doing the first time install on a machine. So that's what we get, initial install. We have another concept of second install. I've installed the client, I need to add a new language. So the first install, second install, look at those as being kind of the same scenario here. So if I look at it, what does it mean? Cloud managed, it's downloaded. So you have the download tool, it's configured, and you can push that out to the client. So it's executable. Download that to an administration, push it out to your clients and say, okay, here's what you need to do. Go talk to the Office CDN, execute this command, and you just point out to the bits. So what happens? Build a configuration, and you just run the command. So you push it out to your environment, run the command, say, hey, go to the Office CDN. From this point forward, your source location for any bits for Office is always pointed to the CDN. You can change this file later on to say, oh, I no longer want these users to go to the CDN. I actually have a new location. All you have to do is change your source. Where's the source location? And it will always go to that location. So download the tool, push it out to your end users, and run the command. Now it'll download from the cloud, update on the machine, and they're good to go. So now what does updates look like in this scenario? We publish, so we being Microsoft, we publish a new update. This doesn't matter if channel, right? So the distribution capability in channels are completely different. They behave the same way if I'm on current or if I'm on deferred channel. So don't think of the distribution as your choice mechanism for channels. They all work the same, it just depends on what channel I'm pointed to. So what happens in an update is Microsoft publishes out to our Office CDN. What happens at that point, the client, because you've told it to go update from the cloud, it checks with that scheduled task. Is there an update? It goes to the CDN and says, my number's 1, there's a 2 out here. Oh, 2, I'm going to go install 2. Sees it, boom, I'm going to install that. So fairly straightforward. Obviously, there's challenges with that. Makes it very, very simple for, as an IT admin, I'm just going to allow my end users, as Microsoft publishes something, the client's just going to do this. We do have several customers that do initial install using their configuration manager environment, but then they point for all updates. They just say, just go to the cloud, because I don't want to manage updates. If my client can reach the internet, I just point them to say, here's my source location. I install one version. It just goes up and checks every day if there's a new version. It just installs. And the reason they chose that is they looked at it from an overhead perspective as an IT admin. They wanted the supportability of it, but they didn't want to have to administer it and manage it on a daily basis. So they just look at it and go, we'll put that money into our help desk or our communications plans, but they just point them straight to the internet. So it makes for a fairly simple deployment. The challenge in this scenario is that as soon as Microsoft publishes something that client checks, it's going to get that download. So you just have to build that into your communications and change management process to say, here's what happened. Makes it a little bit easier when they're on DC versus CC. Sorry, say.
Will we be told that it's coming in 3 days, or truly that morning it'll just happen?
Yeah, so the question was, will we know exactly when it happens? Will we be told 3 days before, or will it just happen? My answer is it depends on what channel you're on. If it's on deferred channel, you'll know that it's in February, in July, and October. For some reason, I'm drawing a blank. I think those are the right dates. It's 3 times a year. On current channel, it'll actually happen as they release. So what happens on your current channel users in that scenario is you really have to have a good communications plan around this is how it works to your end users, because it will just happen. Does that? Yeah.
I can't send an email the day before saying it's happening, nor can I control, on Friday before a 3-day weekend. I don't like that.
Yeah. So it really comes, the question was kind of around can I send emails and can I manage this? The answer is today, no. It's a great feedback thing. You're not the first customer, believe me, to ever tell me that. In fact, that was the nicest way it was ever told to me. But yes, there's some work going on around how do we communicate out these changes better. At this point in time, it will just happen, but it's well heard from our product group, and they're working on ways to how do we communicate that out so that people can take advantage of that. Other? Hey, 1 second. I think there was one back here. So from a bandwidth estimate, if you look at the core Office product, so if I look at just the install from an Office product, it's about 1.2 gigs today. That's an English version. And then each language pack on top of that is about 200 to 300 megs, depending on which language pack it is. So if you add those together and kind of multiply it, that's how you can kind of get to the end of it. Yeah, so the challenge is it'll all depend on kind of costs in your environment. I can give you the size estimate, and you can pump that into what does my network bandwidth utilization look like on that, because we don't do throttling from a customer environment perspective. Do you have a, let me take that offline a little bit. Come talk to us at Ask the Experter right after this, and we can kind of talk through this scenario. The biggest challenge is we don't have control of the throttling in a customer's environment. Yeah. Was there another question, or was it? Okay. Go ahead.
I was going to chime in on his question. Can we simply, can we have like Office, or at least in the tool, can it actually send an email from the server to notify the users there's a latest update for that specific day? So it could hey, yeah, like we said, I don't want, I really have the system or the server just notify them, okay, there's a new update coming out this week, so please, go to Software Center and, download the latest update. And we
Yeah, so I think the question was, do we do any automation around communicating to the end users? The answer is we don't, but if you think about the scenario, some people will or won't have email, et cetera. The one thing that we do have is if you're updating and it downloads in the background, we have what's called a biz bar that pops up, and if you're on Office, even at home, you probably see this. You have that little update now. There's an update available, click now. That's what our automated solution looks like. Is it the most elegant? A lot of people turn that off, but that's the option available, but there's not the email capability and notification.
Yeah, I would say,
Right.
To have like, to have like the system start, forward, say, hey, I got you a brand new version of this
Yeah.
version, can you, forward to the client, and they just have to, do anything to get the new version.
Yeah, short answer is today there's not that capability of advanced notification. Not to say that as we advance in our 365 platform, right. Right. Yep. Any other questions on this one before I kind of move to, okay. All right. So if I look at locally managed, again, I'll kind of just go through the initial download and install component of it, right? So if I download, again, ODT, and I apologize, I did my pet peeve. I put an acronym without defining it first. ODT is the Office Download Tool. So you go out at Office Download Tool. It's the configuration executable for Click to Run. So I apologize, I did that. I'll fix that. Can you just take a quick note, John? But ODT, so you download ODT, so Office Download Tool. You download all the source files, so I point it to a build of Office that I want, either current channel, deferred channel, whatever that build is. I download those down to an admin server. At that point, I configure what we call, so there's the XML configurations that we do, download it to local file distribution. Then I push those out to wherever location I'm going to start going to. So I configure it. I have the configuration XML. It's where you actually put all the parameters, and like I said, it's a 200 level. John, I'm sure, has a lot more of the XML and configuration in his config manager one tomorrow. But you configure it using XML and parameters in the XML. Download those, configure them, push the files out to where my distribution location is, and then I have my clients pointed to a file location. So if you're using a DFS solution where it does a lookup to find out where my closest file share location is, that's generally the most common, point the clients to that, and then the clients use that as their source location. So now, from that day forward, it's always going to go look there and say, oh, am I going to be able to update from here? Is there a newer version? And then they can do that. So where that becomes very valuable is if I have a small bandwidth location, has a small internet bandwidth, I don't want them going to the CDN. I use my internal bandwidth to just slog files down there. Once they're down there, they have a good LAN set up. You can then have everybody pointed to that location. So there's a lot of different ways that this is set up, but where we've seen this become very valuable is those remote locations that have small bandwidth, right? So you get things local into the environment and then use their local network to do downloads. Once that happens, client downloads from that location and installs. So fairly straightforward on the install perspective. If I go to updates, how does updates happen? Or how do updates happen? So this is where some of our customers originally went down this path. To go down, I'm going to use a file share distribution instead of a cloud network because I want to be more controlling. But this is where they actually got into the scenario of this is why they chose cloud instead of file location. Part of it is the administrative overhead, right? There's ways to automate this. I can install scripts that run on scheduled tasks and check these things. You can always automate that stuff, but then I have to have somebody manage that automation if something breaks. So there's trade-offs to that. I don't want to tell you what's right or wrong. They're both completely valid. I could go into scenario after scenario where this works. I could go into scenarios where I would recommend using a CDN. It really depends on what you're trying to accomplish and what your administrative overhead is. But if you're going to use this as an update method, download it, always make sure when you download the latest bits and source files, you go out and look at ODT and make sure your ODT version is the latest version. It never fails. We've gone into a lot of environments where we start troubleshooting, and what happened is we got these bits, source files, and we didn't get the latest updated deployment tool, and there's dependencies on those. So always make sure you're using the latest deployment tool. Push those source files out to the file locations. As soon as the client will always check on their scheduled task, and it will always go to where you tell it to look. So what happens is, as an IT admin, you download them, I package them. As soon as I push them out to the file locations, the client will check that file location and say, is there a newer, larger build number? If there is, I will install it. So what happens from a client perspective, it's very automated. From a client, it's just IT heavy. How do I get the bits down? How do I get them packaged? I have to get them distributed. From a client perspective, it just looks at it and goes, oh, there's a newer build I'm just going to install. So it simplifies it a little bit from a client side. It does add some overhead from an IT admin perspective. And at that point, it will always check there. It'll download it. It'll install it. Again, to the point that was made a couple times, the Office apps actually have to be shut down, et cetera, but it would install it from that location. So questions on the kind of file share location piece of it?
How long can you theoretically postpone getting any updates on it?
So the question was, how long can I theoretically postpone? So theoretically, you could postpone forever, probably, like we do today on MSI files. Supported is we support a DC build for 8 months. So you install it, you have the 4-month window before the next one. So you can always, from a supportability perspective, I install DC1, I can skip DC2 and move to DC3 from a support perspective. They have build, I'm trying to stay, because it's a 200, they're build numbers today. It's build numbers of year, month is how we do our build numbers. I'm just trying to stay out of that because it gets confusing. Is that, okay, yes? So Microsoft does have load balancers worldwide CDNs. Yeah, so what'll happen is it uses an Akamai network and it says, okay, where am I at? I'm gonna grab it from the closest to me, and that's managed across. Other? Okay. All right, and I won't steal John's thunder, I'll go through these kind of lightweight. So if we look at enterprise managed, and I'm just gonna build this one out. Let me get all the way done. Because it's very common, it's just a typical, looking at this is built, I'll say using prior to 1606. I would recommend joining John's session tomorrow if you are a configuration manager and really want to get more technical depth on how to use this scenario. I'll just touch on it quickly. It's around the enterprise managed. So it looks very similar to our locally managed scenario when you look at all the lines. What you do have, though, is all of the enterprise managed solutions out there, Configuration Manager, any other third-party ones, they have kind of this mechanism of getting those files out to your local distribution points or file locations that they use as the pointer. But again, at this point, you download tools, you download it in a configuration manager scenario, you package that up, you advertise that package, and then you distribute it out to your environment. So really what you're doing at this point is you're managing it, but you're packaging it up from a configuration manager perspective, very much like you do in an MSI file. You're just using the ODT file, you're using the XML, and then you're using the source files combined into that package itself instead of just installing the MSI package. So you have a few other things going in there, but you can still do the installation the same way you always done it. Now, here's the interesting one on when we start talking about the enterprise managed scenario. If people get how to do, understand how to do packaging. It's been around for a long time. In fact, there's probably people in here that are much better at packaging and software distribution capabilities of ConfigMan than I am. However, one of the things is when you look at these scenarios, what we're seeing is customers use two different options. So they use first install using their configuration manager or software distribution services. They do the packaging, but then they go, I don't want to have the overhead of managing this, right, in my config manager because it still takes time. Even if it's 5 minutes, it's still 5 minutes for somebody to go in there, download all the updates, or go and grab the downloads and say, okay, target the machines. So what we're starting to see is people use what we call cloud-managed update scenarios. So install first install, get the clients down there, and then point them to the cloud in order to do update management. So we publish something, and now you're just in that cloud managed scenario. We actually have several customers that initially went down the path of, I want to do updates managing them, and then converted to this just from a maintenance perspective of just saying, I'm just gonna use cloud. The other one, option 2, is a typical one. And I'll talk in this at a 200 level, so a simple terms. If you guys have questions, feel free to stop by at Ask the Experts and we can answer depth on this. But if you're on 1606 or later, or even if you're on older versions, you can manage it from I download it, I package it, and I advertise it. So that's one update capability. If you're on 1606 or higher, you can actually go in and as we release, you can go into Software Manager, say, okay, here's the update that just came out, select it, here's the targeted distribution I want to go to. So there's a lot more integration as you look at 1606. And like I said, depth-wise, John has a session tomorrow. You can ask us at Ask the Experts if you can't attend John's. But in a nutshell, you can still go in and use your standard update management now in 1606 and go, oh, I want to select this one. I want to target these people. So it's a lot more integration going on in 1606. So kind of questions on enterprise managed, I think. Yeah.
Is it smart enough the update to detect if you're on-prem, use SCCM if you're off-prem, or not on a VPN, go up to the cloud?
Today it's not. We've been working with our engineering team to try to push that that's a feature that we're trying to get included, but as of today it's not. Yeah, as of today it's not. Yes?
By default, it's going to go to the CDN for updates, so we need to implement GPL, right, to make sure that updates do not come through our clients?
So the question was, by default, it goes to the CDN for updates. You can actually use either a group policy to change that setting, or you can have it in the configuration file. Either way, you can do that. So to change it, group policy overrides the config file.
Is any of this dependent on the Windows Update service in case we have to in our environment?
So short answer is it does not. So the CDN, the cloud CDN is different than the WSUS. There is a little bit of integration. I don't want to go too deep in it. Talk to us at Ask the Experts. There is some integration with 1606 and WSUS, the Windows Update service, but the answer is no, it's not dependent on it. They're completely separate. There's a little bit of integration happening between them.
Windows Update off and lock it down on my clients. That doesn't cause a problem with.
No, on the client side, no. No, your config manager would have to see that a new thing was published in WSUS, but okay, yeah. So the answer is no. The answer is no, it's not dependent on WSUS. And I think, is there a question back here? Okay.
In this case, it seems like the clients are not doing the version checking. Is that correct? It's just the packaging is actually pushing those updates. There's no, in this case, there's no use of channels.
Yeah, there's two different. If you're using the package advertisement capability, then what you're doing is you're pushing as an IT admin saying, I want to update to this. So the answer is no, it's not doing that versioning. When you're actually using kind of that update path where it looks at that DP for a source, it'll look and say, is this build higher than my next build? So it depends on if you're doing a forced advertisement and pushing an update or whether I'm pointing the client to look to a location. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
Is that a difference between the file managed and the enterprise managed then? Or is this?
You can use them interchangeably for updates. So it just depends on which method you're using.
Gotcha, thank you.
Yep. Okay. All right. So we'll kind of move on. Summarized, like I said, there's various different supported. You know, I always struggle where I hate using the word "it depends." Like, a question usually comes in, what do I do for this? Well, it depends. What are you trying to do? Like, what do you want to do? But think of this in a world of what we're trying to change to is when I say cloud managed, locally managed, and enterprise managed, we're moving into that cloud service world. So when we say, oh, I'm going to go point something to the cloud and it's just going to auto update, what we're trying to do is change to say, well, that's not managed, because that's what we used to say maybe 2-4 years ago. Oh, if you're just pointing to the cloud, it's not managed. It's managed, it's just managed in a different way. And so it's trying to get us to go, for certain scenarios, I can point and use other infrastructure for my software distribution capabilities. I don't want to lose the capability I have for remote offices that I've invested in a heavy file share location. So we can still use that, and I can still use my enterprise managed. So really what we're trying to get across is, in the click-to-run world, there's this misnomer that I have to go to the cloud. I have to always point to the cloud. The answer is you can use any one of these. Yes, cloud is an option if that meets your business need. A lot of companies are starting to move that direction slowly on certain scenarios, but if you're not able to move to a cloud because I have it shut down, or I need to go through proxies, or I need to do whatever, I can still use my distribution capabilities I have today, just like I do in my MSI world. So that's kind of the differences between them. So, sorry, I kind of flew that. Next steps and resources. So I want to save a little bit of time here. So I'll just say, what do we use the multiple channels, right? The channels are there for a reason. There are some things that we're working through to make sure that they're better and more stable or not stable, but more usable for people in different scenarios. But I'd say, what should we do coming out of this? Do use the channels for validating, for seeing features. Do use the slower channels if needed for your end users, from a stability, from a line of business. Definitely enable users in your environment to all report issues. Don't just look at your IT department that's using current channel or first release. Set up mechanisms in the way that all of your users can report issues. The faster you report issues in the faster channels, the faster that information gets back to Microsoft, and the faster it gets to either feature, security, et cetera. So always enable that. Always keep the client secure with updates. No matter what channel you're on, we'll get monthly security updates. I know that there are some environments that probably haven't been patched for years. I'm not saying anybody in here would ever do that, but just make sure that you are making sure that you're doing security updates. And then prepare for a rollback. I didn't touch on it, but if there is an issue, you have these other channels available to say, okay, I have a user, they're identified a problem, point them to another package, and you can update them and do a rollback. Those are the things that we document in our best practice. Please try not to invent a new process. Typically, when we go into customers who invented their own processes versus using our best practices, we usually spend a couple, 2, 3, 4 weeks trying to figure out how we get their process to work, and then we go back to a best practice. So try not to invent new things unless there's a reason. Sometimes there is. But I would really try to encourage not to. Avoid unneeded manual processes. It sounds obvious to IT teams. Sometimes we don't think those through. Like, do I really need to have somebody right-click and copy somewhere? Can I script it, et cetera? And then try not to juggle builds. So I went through that channel management, and there's a reason I talk more in a business sense. Everything is built at Microsoft off of build numbers. What I would look at is, look at what your goal is as a company. Look at what your end user's goal is. How much change can I consume? How much change can I consume from an end user and from an IT perspective? Look at the channels as recommended channels for how am I going to manage it. Try not to bog yourself down in builds. If you are on CC, you'll get 3 builds a month. If you're on build numbers, you'll always be having this chat around juggling all these build numbers and who's on what build. Look at it from a, how do I leverage these channels to actually meet my corporate needs? Whoa, I jumped to the next slide somehow. Apologize. Here's that link I was telling you about. So this deck will be available to everybody when we're done. So if you go to aka.ms/office deployment, you'll come to a splash page. You can go to what's called the preferred practices today. It will be changing to best practices. And it's actually the web, what you see here is a downloadable OneNote. So everything you see on the web, you can click through it all in WebView, and then there's an option to actually download it to OneNote. Reason we published it that way is what we've seen IT admins do is go, I like this scenario, I like this. So we made it so that you can actually download it, have the exact same content, and then modify your OneNote based on your IT organization. So feel free to please use that. And provide feedback. It's all, you can actually click on it, provide feedback. People that are in this room actually monitor the Yammer sites and actually respond, take feedback, and we can get updates. So don't hesitate to put up feedback out there for us. And then I'm going to turn it over to Q&A, but please don't forget, Ask the Experts is right after this. So if there's something that you want depth on some of these things that I kind of touched on at 200 level, please don't hesitate. I've got several people, I think there's 4 of us that'll be there. Product group is there. The product group has some FY17 programs that they've got in place to help customers if they want to accelerate or speed up Office Pro Plus. So if you have questions, feel free to talk to Chris. Chris owns those offers, so if there's things that he can do to help you, more than happy to talk to you. If you have depth stuff, come talk to myself or John, and then I appreciate your guys' time. So we've got a couple minutes if there's any other quick questions, or we can see you tonight.